Hi guys, this is Forgetful Scholar, and let's chat about books. So this week we have, let's see. Oh, sorry. My dog distracted me for a second. So we have In Need of a Thief. We have Missing Letters. Well, hello, Remy. That was my dog, Remy. And, Griffen's POV. Okay, so let's get started with the first one, and that would be In Need of a Thief, how I called it. It is a FM historical, and it is A Loving Scoundrel, a Malory novel by Johanna Lindsey, and this is a revisit. It is. So this has to do with James Malory's son, Jeremy, who has always been one of my favorites, and his love story. And I always enjoy this one. This one's a little quirky, a little different. Well, the main girl, Danny, she's different. She's really a different heroine, and I really do enjoy her quite a bit. So, basically, Jeremy and his friend Percy are in a bit of trouble, and they have to get something back from a lord that they lost in a card game. But Percy swears up and down that it was like a scam and all that stuff. So, Jeremy, because, he's James Malory's son, and he's an adult in this book, because the other books he was like a teenager, but now he's like in his mid-20s, or late 20s, I believe. And he's like, well, we just need a thief to get it back. That way, it can't come back to us and all that kind of stuff. So they go to the bad part of town to hire a thief, and that's where they meet Danny. So Danny has grown up on the streets. She's been on the streets since she was a little girl. She doesn't really remember anything else, and she's always hidden her gender as a boy. One of the older girls helped her hide as a boy because, Danny doesn't mind stealing for food and like stealing for money, but she personally doesn't want to be a prostitute. So they helped her hide, which is really, really awesome. So Danny accepts, it was like a hard sell on Jeremy's part because in their little gang, if she accepts a deal outside of like the leader's say so, that she could get kicked out. And this is all she's ever known, but Jeremy's kind of insistent. It's sort of like, well, you don't have a choice kind of a thing. So she helps them out, and she gets thrown out of her gang for it, and she shows up at Jeremy's place and like, you cost me my family, and now I have no place to live. So he puts her up as a maid. And, he's stricken with her beauty, and her personality is very different. Because Jeremy is, like, written that he's just, like, the epitome of male gorgeousness. Like, everyone just wants to be with him, And Jeremy, his personality is a pretty lovable scoundrel. Like, he's a scamp. So, but Danny's not impressed. She lived her whole life pretending to be a boy. She's not impressed. She knows what it's like to be starving. And Jeremy, as you remember from the other Malory novels, his mother was a barmaid. So he grew up in a bar in like the Caribbean, I believe. So he doesn't have a privileged childhood either. So I always kind of liked how they had that in common, like they had stuff in common. So she starts working at Jeremy's house as a maid, and she's very pragmatic. She's very down to earth. She does want to have a family of her own, but she's not looking for a lord. She doesn't think, Jeremy's going to fall in love with her, even though she's attracted to him. She's keeping her distance. She wants to marry like a butcher or a baker or like a footman. Like she just wants, she's being very realistic and down to earth, and I kind of really like that about her. She's not, she's not a dreamer. It's just a different kind of personality for the main female than what we've seen before. Sorry, it's really windy out, so I was just, got distracted. Sorry. So that's kind of interesting. I really always enjoy that. So this is like a 4 for me. It goes between a 3 and a 4, I guess, kind of how I feel like it. And it is basic romance. Like, there's not really that much of a subplot. Like, there's a little mystery about Danny's family and things like that, and there is a happy ending, and I do like what Danny does with money that she acquires. Like I thought I was like, oh yeah, that's what she does. That's my girl, down to earth and wants to help people. That's awesome. But this is basically a romance, and it's a really sweet one. It's not, I always, because Jeremy's like one of my favorite in the Malory family. So I kind of wanted his story to be a little bit more adventurous and a little bit more over the top. Maybe some like swashbuckling in there because he was on the pirate ship for like his teens. You know what I mean? He was a pirate with his dad for like most of his teenage years. You know what I mean? Something a little more gritty, something like that. And I always thought Jeremy would be an interesting character to kind of take over James Malory, his father's role in the family. You know what I mean? Because if anybody could kind of do that, I could see Jeremy being able to. But I was always kind of disappointed a little bit. That's why it's a 4, because like it's not very adventurous story, but it is a really sweet like romance. So you know that's so that's important, right? Right. Weird, huh? Okay. He's just laying on my bed. He knows he's not supposed to. Okay. Anyway, just so distracted. Okay. So easy to derail myself. Okay. Even in the later books, you know, Jeremy doesn't really have any kind of bigger role, which is unfortunate because James is like in every single book. So it kind of would have been nice if Jeremy was, you know, someone maybe the younger cousins turn to when they get in trouble, things like that. Because he's very approachable. He's a very likable guy, you know? So that would have been kind of interesting. Even when his sister's in trouble, he's not really in it. There's a scene where like he's like, oh, Dad told me I can't get involved, this sucks. And I'm like, you're a grown-ass man with your own family, you know what I mean? Like, why are you just like, well, and this is your baby sister, like what is happening right now? So it's a little unfortunate. So this is a 4-star for me. I always do enjoy it. I feel like I'm going through the Malory family books again. I wonder why. I've just been in the mood for it, I guess. All right, so the second one is The Missing Letters. So this is Sebastian, the Soldier's Scoundrel, and this is an MM historical, and this one's a 3-star. Now this is a 3-star. This one was interesting. It took me a while to figure out what kind of star rating I would give it, because the writing was fantastic, and I easily fell into the story. If you're looking for something that has like a subplot of like mystery, even though the guy Jack is a PI, don't bother. don't bother, but like it's not, the romance is the main part, and the subplot of the mystery of looking for these missing letters that his client is afraid she's gonna get blackmailed for isn't really, it's a plot device to drive them together, Jack and Oliver together, and kind of slowly push the story along, but it doesn't have that great of a payoff. Although the reason for the letters are kind of sweet, and it's nice that Jack feels like, because he kind of thinks everyone has their own agenda and everyone's out to get everybody, so it's kind of nice that like the woman had good intentions. So basically Jack is a private eye, and he doesn't help gentlemen. He only helps ladies or the working class or the poor. He does not take clients who are gentlemen because screw them. And he used to work for the Ton as a valet. Sorry. And he's seen how like corrupt and how like messed up and how privileged they are. And he's like, you don't need my help. You're fine. Whatever. Until Oliver shows up. Oliver is the older brother to one of Jack's clients. It seems like one of his first clients. And he wants to know, he just comes back from the war and he's injured. And he wants to know what the hell his sister paid him $200 for. 200 pounds, sorry. And back then that was a lot of money. Like a lot of money. So they kind of get into an argument. And even though Jack thinks Oliver is very attractive, he still kind of hates his guts because he's a gentleman. And Oliver just thinks the worst of Jack. Now, like I said, this book is 3 stars because it was really easy to fall into. It was also really easy to fall out of. I will say that. There is a happy ending, and I really did enjoy the conclusion of the story. Do you notice I'm trying to do this a little faster than normal? I'm trying to cut down like the 20 minutes into. Anyway, sorry. But the thing is, it's really easy to fall out of it because Oliver, particularly, like I got really tired of his POV. Like really tired of it. Like I liked that he's injured his leg and it constantly gives him problems, like a chronic issue. And I did like seeing that. I do want to read more books where people have chronic issues, because that's, you want to read, yourself a little bit in these books, right? So I thought that was interesting and that was nice. And there's a sizzling attraction between them, and the love scenes are really spicy and a lot of fun. The mystery has, it's not a big, it's okay conclusion. It's not very satisfying, but the reason behind it is very sweet. The end romance ending is very sweet. Oliver annoys the shit out of me. Like, at first, I get it why he was, like, going back and forth. Like, he thinks Jack is the worst, a scoundrel, yet he's attracted to him, yet he's falling in love, yet he's like, he always thinks the worst of Jack. And the thing is, Jack always thinks the worst of himself. So no one kind of beats themselves up more than Jack does, himself in his POV. So Oliver, and it just gets annoying to put, and like, he really doesn't treat Jack very well. Like, not that it's abusive or anything like that, but like, he always believes that Jack does the worst and he leaves. Like, he runs away from the problem every time. And like, honestly, like, enough. And I get it, it was supposed to make conflict and everything like that, but it went on for too long and happened too many times. Like, if it was once and that was the third act conflict, I would have really enjoyed this a lot more. I don't think Oliver would have annoyed me so much, but because it continuously happens, and like, Jack is like, oh, I forgive you, like, it continuously happens until finally the end of the book and it's a sweet resolution, that it just really annoyed me. Now, normally I would put this at 2 stars, but the writing was so good that I'm like, okay, 3 stars. And I might check out some of her other books, but like, literally, Oliver just annoyed me so much. It's like, dude, pick a lane. Like, you're going back and forth and you're treating this man that you that you love like crap because of it. So like, stop being a little bitch, all right? Like, the Aries came out when I was reading this. I was like, oh. Okay. So the last book is, again, someone we've read, like, have shown on this channel many of times. Jordan Hawk, you guessed it. That now, I looked up a couple times how to say this title, because I want to say, I was like, oh, I better, try to pronounce this correctly. So, Hoarfrost, apparently, Google and multiple sources told me that's how you pronounce it. That, like, the A and the R are kind of soft, because if not, it's like Hoarfrost. Yeah. Anyway, it's a Whyborne and Griffen novel, and I believe it's the 6th, book 6. Now, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Now, this one, 4 stars. I can't give it 5 stars because it's part of a series, but if I could, I would. This one, historical and, like, paranormal. We all know this. Also, I don't know how much I could say, because it happens a year after the last book, and there's book 5, so much stuff happens, like, personally and professionally, for both Whyborne and Griffen, that it's like I can't really share a lot. And this one had so many, like, subtext of found family and acceptance and accepting who you are, that it's so good. So good. So they head off to Antarctica because Griffen's brother's in trouble. And this book is amazing because it's Griffen's POV. So we get some of Griffen's POV, and I was so excited about that. I know, it's ridiculous, but I was really excited about it. Because up until this point, we didn't have Griffen's POV, and then some chapters are Griffen's POV, so I loved it. Okay, so this one, the power-up is, like, curse-breaking. Also, I was thinking about calling this one Curse Breaker, but, like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. It's Curse Breaker. Anyway, it's curse-breaking. So, Whyborne's been working on how to break curses. And everyone, after the last book, everyone in the library and the museum kind of treat him a little different. And again, I can't really say a lot because book 5 is where, like, everything changes. It's amazing. But Griffen's father has passed away, his adopted father, and they did not reconcile. So I will say, in the last book, or 2 books ago, Griffen's father, found out that Griffen was gay, and he's like, well, we're not talking till you come to Jesus or whatever, till you realize that's a sin, blah, blah, blah. So he passed away, and there was no resolution. And his adoptive mother said, like, oh, your father's dead, don't come to the funeral. It's pretty messed up. Pretty messed up. And the thing is, it's so interesting, because, like, I love how this author makes people complicated, because people are complicated. People are very complicated. So I really enjoy that this author shows that, because Griffen's parents, they don't accept his sexuality and the man that he loves. Yet they adopted him and treated him as their own child, which you find out from Griffin's older brother that wasn't always the case. Like Jack, Griffin's older brother, did not have that experience. Jack was adopted basically to be a servant, unpaid servant. So, or slave, you know. So, and they broke him out of the asylum and they took him in after that, where a lot of people wouldn't. So, like, there are good parts, but they didn't accept his sexuality and completely cut him off because of it. So it's such a complicated, and I love that because people are complicated. And then you have Whyborne's family, who, like, the dad was like part of the brotherhood of these evil sorcerers trying to take over the world, had him thrown in the asylum. Although he didn't, the father Neil didn't personally have Griffen abused in horrible ways, but the asylum did do that to try to cure his homosexuality. They decided rape was the cure. You know, yet, like, the Wyvern's older brother tried to kill them, to take over. Like, there's so much going on. Yet, the father, the Whyborne Senior, the father, who, like, for so many books was the asshole, never had a problem with Whyborne being in love with Griffen. Like, he was like, yeah, okay. Like, he didn't even, like, it didn't even pause him. He never said anything about it. He never told him to break up with Griffen. He just said at one point, like, oh, yeah, you're with Griffen, but you're gonna marry, like, a woman and have Griffen as a lover, right? Because that's just, you know? And Whyborne got upset, and Griffen didn't, because it's like, yeah, that's what most people do. They have beards, and we're on this, you know, and the lover's on the side. And it wasn't like Neil was like, oh, how dare you, homosexuality is evil, break up with him. He was like, no, you're just gonna have to marry to keep face, like marry a woman to keep face for the public, but, you know, be with Griffen on the side, who cares? You know, or even like, you're, you know, like, so it's such a weird thing that, and like Neil, Whyborne, you know, father, like, is always inviting them for holidays. Like, they spend holidays with him. Like, all these things. Like, he doesn't care that they're together. He doesn't care that they're in love. You know, yet he's such, like, a bastard about everything else. So he's so complicated, too. In the last book, I really did feel bad for him. So, like, I love this writer and how they make people complicated. Because a person isn't all one thing. And things like that. And, like, the Edcotts show back up. And they're, like, a family of monster hunters from the last book. And, like, you're like, oh, monster hunters, you know, but as shown in the last book, they're, they got a little too used to them only being, wow, my brain, for them being the only, like, judge and jury, you know what I mean? Like, a little too much. Like, they, like, power a little too much, and you saw that. So it's so interesting how the Brotherhood wants to power and destroy everything, and Edcott's want power and to protect everything, but to protect everything, they have no problem killing hundreds and thousands of innocent people. You know, so it's like such a two ends of such an extreme coin, and it's like the author's like, hey, maybe extreme views on either side, not so good. You know, at least that's what I took out of it. So they show back up. So they go to Alaska to save Jack's life, because Jack's life is in danger. A lot of things happen. Griffen has these prophetic dreams that are starting to come true, and he's having, well, it's a scary time. And again, I can't say a lot. They end up in this underground city that resembles the Dwellers that Whyborne was in the second or third book, remembers? So a lot of Cthulhu things happen. I know, can't really say much. Christine's there, feisty as always. I love her. Feisty, pig-headed, and calling the boys on their idiocy the whole time. I did enjoy that, like, there was a little fight between Whyborne and Christine, because Christine kind of was joking, but she said something that crossed the line, and, like, because sometimes that happens in friendships too. Like, you joke around, but then you accidentally hit on a sore subject, and so I did, like, it made it feel real, to me at least. It made it feel a little bit more real, their friendship. I really enjoyed that. A little bit of a spoiler, Christine is getting married, and she wants Griffen and Whyborne to stand with her, because her family doesn't agree with the love of her life, who is half Egyptian. We saw him in the the fourth book? Yes, the fourth book, when they went to Egypt. I know, keeping all these books straight, right? Anyway, the mystery ending is really good. And it's really just drives home the issue about family. And not all family is like familial love, and how that should be without limits, you know, that there shouldn't be a caveat to it, you know? Um, and that like people are complicated, and not only people are complicated, but the monsters that they're fighting are complicated. And that was really such a fantastic avenue to go down. Like, hey, these monsters that you think are just pure evil, you know, they're sentient, right? Like, there's stuff going on. So like that, oh, so good, so good, so good. We're such a fan of Jordan L. Hogg on this channel. Forget it, right? Oh, okay. So I actually really did have a fun time this week. Found a new author, Cat Sebastian. I'm going to check out some more. Again, that book, it's just Oliver annoyed me because it was a little repetitive. But, you know, the revisit to Johanna, Lindsey. And that book, well, yeah. I really did enjoy it. It's just you can almost see how after, like, this is almost the beginning of how romance started having all those sub genres, and how they kind of started separating it a little bit more, you know? Like, in the past, Joanna Lindsey had, I think it was a medieval book called The Joined, where, like, twin sisters had, like, abilities, but it wasn't spelled out, but one was, like, could almost understand animals, the other one could almost feel your emotion, things like that, but then, you know, paranormal romance started, so no more of that, and how Joanna Lindsey started, yeah, I used to have, like, more kinkier plots, but then, like, dark romance showed up, so, like, now the mainstream romance doesn't really touch that anymore, so that's kind of a shame it got separated like that. But I did have a fun week. Thanks for letting me babble on. Maybe... I'll show you what my dog's doing, because he's not supposed to be doing that. He's just loud on the bed, and he knows it. Anyway, I don't want to, but it's time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, subscribe. See you later. What are you doing? You're not supposed to be on the bed. You know you're not supposed to be on the bed. You don't even care. I have no power here, huh? No power whatsoever, huh? Don't listen to me. Not supposed to be on the bed. Don't listen to me. No power, huh? Not whatsoever, huh? Huh?